Welcome to Piv's Yapology Sessions, where I yap about things I don't like or I do like too much. Usually there's not an in-between, there might be, we'll see. Today's topic on the chopping block is Five Nights at Freddy's. Just in general, the entire thing. Because I want to go over how it went from FNAF 1 to Secret of the Mimic, and why I think there is not enough attention put on the fact that the game is just an entirely different genre now. I feel crazy, right? Because I'm looking at the new games, and I'm like, this is cool, but I don't see any gameplay, you know? And people are like, of course there's gameplay, you're walking around and doing puzzles. I'm like, yeah, but when I played Five Nights at Freddy's back then, it wasn't because it was, oh, a puzzle game. It was because, oh, adrenaline, I'm going to die, survive. So, first and foremost, let me go over the first original 6 games. There's the 8, technically, or we'll get to it. I wanted to label the first 4, firstly, because I think we can kind of breathe through those. Everyone knows the first 4. I don't have to go too far into that. In general, FNAF 1 establishes atmosphere, establishes the general gameplay loop. I would say it's not particularly riveting to play, especially nowadays, but when you play it back then, boy, was it scary. The first time playing through, it's pretty spooky. FNAF 2, we have a gameplay increase. Now you're doing a lot more. I would say the atmosphere kind of takes a little bit of a dive, and in general, the game is a lot less scary in return for having more to do, which I think is a fair trade-off, and I think it turned out pretty good. I don't think the game is perfect by any means. A lot of people hold to a pretty high standard, and I would say, at least from a gameplay perspective, I understand why. Especially when you look at the other games in the franchise, I can see why they like it. I think aesthetically, it kind of takes a dive. Then we have FNAF 3, which is a weird case, because it adds, like, lore, right? FNAF 1 and 2 had lore. I mean, even FNAF 2 had, like, sometimes you died and you play a minigame. Like, they all had little lore tidbits. You could piece together a pretty cohesive story. Back then, it was cohesive. It was just, guy murders kids. The kids are in the suits. Haunted animatronics. Woo! That was the whole thing. I mean, the most prevalent question was who was a night guard, really. That was the most prevalent question at the time. And also, if FNAF 2 was a prequel or a sequel. Still not clear on that myself. I haven't kept up with the lore. That aside, FNAF 3 added these, like, mandatory minigames between the nights, so everyone saw them. It was part of the game. And as well, multiple endings that you could get, plus, like, just a lot of lore. And also introduced William Afton full and proper, as well as the role of springlock suits in the story. Because up until now, we just knew that you put him in the suit, and the person's probably gonna die, because there's a lot of gizmos in there. I don't know if they ever fully explained that, because I don't think the FNAF 1 suits are springlock suits. I don't think that's how they work, but I might be wrong on that. Not important to the video, so we're just going to gloss over that. Just know that FNAF 3 added springlock suits and introduced William Afton. Gameplay-wise, it kind of sucked. I think everyone can agree FNAF 3 is not very riveting, and it's just overall kind of a slog. I mean, the first night, you literally don't do anything. Like, that's how not gameplay it is. And then we have FNAF 4. To me, it combines the atmosphere of FNAF 1, the gameplay of FNAF 2, not the gameplay as in, like, literally the gameplay, but it has things to do, because FNAF 1 didn't have a whole lot to do. FNAF 4 has a lot for you to run, like, you're literally running around and doing things, right? Which also an interesting aspect is physically moving, which was not something you could do prior. I would argue the animatronics are a little goofy looking, but it's fine. I think they look fine. Especially Nightmare Fredbear, I think is pretty solid. And it also, not only did it introduce, you know, the Bite of 83, and all that shenanigan, which we all thought was the Bite of 87, which is why Sister Location was created, mind you. But it also introduced the idea of a boss battle final night, which is something that we've all seen in fan games now, right? The final night's always this one guy who holds up all the different roles, and he's super big bad, blah. Done to varying success, really. This was the game that kind of introduced that, so to speak. You could argue FNAF 3, but it was the one guy the entire time, so does it really count as it? Not really. Then you have Sister Location, which was a pretty big departure. It was a story-based, narrative-driven experience, but it also had little minigame gameplay segments similar to, they're basically like mini nights, right? Instead of, like, you have a ramping up, increasing difficulty throughout the nights with the same gameplay loop, you had a different gameplay loop each night that you had to master individually. Plus a story that's kind of being told to you all proper instead of behind the scenes, which is also something new to FNAF. Because, like, they're doing that with the minigames, and that was cool, but it was still a little hard to follow. This time, it was, like, Loki telling you. Like, there were voice actors, which is crazy. It expanded very much into a proper, like, individual, isolated game. Because you play FNAF 3 on its own, yeah, probably won't like it. If you didn't like the first 2 games, you're not going to like FNAF 3. You play FNAF Central Location, you can give it to somebody as their first FNAF game, and they'll probably like it. I mean, it was the first FNAF game that, ever since FNAF 1, that Jacksepticeye fully finished, if I recall. which is a pretty big accomplishment, because Jacksepticeye, I mean, he's gone on record how he doesn't like FNAF. He knows the lore. He's kind of on the same boat as me, where it's like the lore is super cool. But I kind of took a nosedive, and it's super weird. So we're gonna get into that. Don't worry. I also like to point out that Sister Location is kind of where, because Scott Cawthon, right? He did a bunch of these games before FNAF, and they were all like sci-fi-esque. He had some religious stuff, and in general, his style was like 80s sci-fi is what they call it, because it's like the idea of what sci-fi would look like in the future based off the 80s technology they had at the time. That's just an aesthetic now, and that's what Scott had for a lot of it. It was way out there, wacky sci-fi, and plus like humor. A lot of humor-ish stuff. Sister Location was probably the darkest game in the series, because I mean, you low-key get you get skinned, basically. That was the premise, and you even see somebody literally get hanged in the game. Like, that was a pretty big step up. Like, the closest we got to that was FNAF 1's ending cutscene, right? Where you saw yourself spring-locked. I mean, FNAF 2 was like, it literally just saw through the mask. It was super, like, lame. And then FNAF 3, I don't even remember what that was, if it even had it, like, a proper death, like, screen. So, I mean, in general, Sister Location, very dark game. We then have Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, which was originally advertised as Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location 2. Then it was like, oh, it's canceled, guys, I can't do it. And they're like, oh, well, you know what I will do? I'll make a little mini game for you guys. Then he released the game. So, I mean, it's basically Sister Location 2. It has, like, I mean, it's not entirely, it takes the concept of Sister Location and exemplifies that. And that's a theme you'll notice, right? The FNAF franchise, to this point, has taken the previous game, built on it in some way, or added something different, you know? It always tried to, like, add some new flavors, but it was still fundamentally Five Nights at Freddy's. There's no point-and-click, survival, adrenaline-fueled, multitasking, resource management. All of those things. And usually had atmosphere to go with it, right? FNAF 6 took that. It had like a fake out, right? Because like the game was advertised as like this little mini game, and then it turned out the whole big FNAF game was actually the end of FNAF, which I'll get into. So it was like this big extravagant game, and you have 3 gameplay sections. You have Pizzeria Simulator, where you're, like, as the name would suggest, where you go and get it, you're building your pizzeria out of the gate. It's like a tycoon simulator, right? If you played Roblox, you've seen the tycoons, something like that. Then you go into the actual FNAF night where you have to, instead of a timer, this is the first, interesting enough, this is the first time where instead of 6 a.m., I mean, you could count Sister Location, but because it wasn't, like, proper FNAF gameplay at the time, it is a little iffy, and even the proper FNAF gameplay did have a 6 a.m. timer, so I'm not going to count it, because I think this is the first time that proper FNAF gameplay was tied to a non-time-based goal. You had to actually do tasks to fight your way out of the night, which really added to the tension, because you couldn't just wait it out, right? You had to actually go out of your way to beat the night. And I think that's a big reason why some people don't like this game, is because it just feels a lot more stressful than other games. I might be wrong on that. But that's how it feels to me. The PNG jump scares, because like a lot of people are complaining that the jump scares are super like low quality. I kind of agree. Although I would say the jump scare sound they're associated with is just fucking ears screeching. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a very good jump scare sound. Should also mention that the jump scare sounds have kind of evolved over time as well, but I mean, it's not really that important. FNAF 4 had all the previous 3 games in one, and FNAF 3 and 2 just kind of had whatever jump scare sounds. I think in general, jump scare sounds didn't really matter. Anyways, the gameplay night, you could upgrade your stuff too. That was also revolutionary at the time. But then also, in addition to all that, there was a third gameplay section where you salvage animatronics. I think if you throw it back in the alleyway, you don't deal with the animatronic. I think that's how it works. But if you salvage it, you do get the money, and then you also have to deal with the animatronic, right? So basically, you get to customize your experience a little, which is also a new concept. I think all this really gets tied off neatly by the ending, where it really has this big cinematic speech, right? Where Henry goes off on how blah blah FNAF blah 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 horror, you know. And then he burns the place down with him inside it and kills everything, and everything ends on a nice, neat bow. And that was the end. And then after that, he released Ultimate Custom Night, which I think it's a good game. I mean, it even took the gameplay elements, and it was like, okay, but what if it was more smooth, responsive? What if it had keybinds? What if it had more customization? What if it was less focused on the horror and more on the gameplay? So it took that idea from FNAF 2 and really upped it to the extreme with everything he had learned over the years. Made Ultimate Custom Night. No real horror to it. It's just a fun game. It's a side game. It's not a main game. even if I were to complain that it didn't have horror to it, which I'm not, I don't think it needs to, it's just its own thing. But also, it's not a mainline game, so you can kind of forgive it, because it's not really part of the main story. It's not even canon. Some people have kind of tried to make it canon, and whether or not the canon status has changed because of the theories or not is entirely whatever, but it's not canon, as far as I know. Now I want to talk about the fact that up to this point, I mean, the franchise started because Scott Cawthon made a game. It's supposed to be a kid-friendly logging company game. It's like Chipper and Sons or something like that, right? And then people thought that was creepy because of how he did his animations. So then he took that, made FNAF 1 as like a last-ditch effort. Like, okay, people aren't liking my previous stuff. I'll make this instead. Off to the criticism, I'll turn it into my strength. And people loved it. And over time, I think Scott kind of realized, yeah, this is great, but I kind of want to do more sci-fi stuff again. And if I do that, people aren't really going to really care because they want FNAF. So he tried to put sci-fi into FNAF. And I think he did it pretty damn well. Like, this location was pretty freaking solid. FNAF Pizzeria Simulator, yes. It also had sci-fi-esque elements to it, but it wasn't really out there. I guess now is a good time to bring up FNAF World, where this really came to show. FNAF World really feels like it took that concept of his previous styles, right? And it really wanted to exemplify that. And see if people would like it. Because he was like, I want to do more of this sci-fi stuff, more of this funny stuff. But I can't because I'm doing a horror franchise that has no sci-fi elements really at all at the time. I think this was before Sister Location came out. I thought that was interesting to note that it seems like he's been trying to move the franchise in a more sci-fi direction so that he can do something that he's more in line with and moreover enjoys doing. That's what I think is happening. Or was happening. But that's my own personal, I think that's what's happening, but it might not be right. So, moving on, it's around this time that Scott contracts a VR game development studio, which I don't know anything about, really. They made FNAF Help Wanted. Very good game. I'm not even, it's a very good game. It's just straight up good. I mean, the models are really low poly, which is weird. I don't know why how they couldn't figure out how to optimize that properly for VR hardware. VR hardware at the time was not as advanced as it is now, so maybe that just was a genuine limitation. I'm not gonna get into it. I think it's a great game, and even as a flat screen game, it's a good game. It just takes the first 4 games, a little bit of Sister Location, I think. I mean, FNAF 4 barely makes an appearance. But it just takes those, and it just exemplifies them dramatically to be in a VR setting. And it does some things like what was in FNAF 1, the cameras no longer take power, and they're just like a physical thing in front of you. FNAF 2, you can wear your mask while winding the music box, which is why FNAF 2 in VR is so much less annoying than FNAF 2 on flat screen. FNAF 3, they changed the layout, and I think FNAF 3 just kind of works a lot better in VR, because even though you're not doing much, because you still don't do anything in the first night. It's crazy they didn't change that, but, anyways, I could go on, but FNAF Help Wanted is just a good, like, VR port, so to speak. It's not a port, but you know what I mean. Like, it even had its own isolated story. And it's at this point where the story starts to take a weird thing. Because, like, they had introduced this thing called Malhair. We call it Glitch Trap now, but it was supposed to be, like, Malhair or something like that. As far as I know. And basically, it was Purple Guy, which is William Afton, personality uploaded into a digital chip, which apparently was because of the Mimic or whatever. I don't fucking know. Okay, we're not gonna get into it. Basically, he a VR headset, Ooga Booga, because this VR game existed in the lore, which was also a weird design choice. I don't know why they did that. That was just, it kind of threw a bunch of wrenches into everything. Scott Cawthon actually exists in FNAF lore. Also a weird design choice, but whatever. The point is, this is the point where the story got really weird, because, like, the VR headset basically transferred William Afton's consciousness into, someone, which I believe is Vanny in Security Breach. And it's just weird sci-fi stuff, right? It's really out of left field. And this is why I'm bringing up all of Scott's previous sci-fi stuff, because I think this is where that came from. I think he really wanted to work on something more sci-fi. And I think it's around this time, I can't remember if it was during Security Breach or after, or before. One of those times. It was around Security Breach where Scott retired, right? Now, before anybody goes, he's not actually fully retired, right? He's still helping. You can still see his art on some arcade cabinets in the games. Like, he's still around. He's still doing things, right? He never fully retired. He isn't doing it, like, full time anymore, so to speak. So that is worth noting. And going forward, I'll explain why I think that's really not relevant to what I'm going to say. It's at this point that we're going to move into what I like to call the lore dump era. And I call it that for a few reasons, so I'll go into more in depth soon. But basically, this is the point where Steelwool kind of takes the lead in FNAF game development, and we're not going to mention FNAF AR because I don't even think that game's online anymore. It doesn't matter. But Steelwool basically made all the mainline games now, right? That's their thing. The games stopped becoming gameplay oriented and more focused on giving you like lore, which is weird to me. I don't know why that's weird to me, because we've always had the lore, but like to me it's like the lore was a side thing. It wasn't the main thing. It wasn't the main attraction, you know? You played the game and you got some lore on the side. It was like a nice dessert. Now it's like the gameplay kind of takes them to the side. Now it's mostly a walking simulator, and then you also have lore. And I'll get into the exact nitty-gritty of that. Starting with Security Breach, which weird relaunch, right? Everyone was like, "Oh my god, the next big thing," and it was. That was the idea. It was. I think it was at PAX or something, PAX East. I don't know what the exact. It was like a big game conference thing, right? And basically, it was featured there, which is already revolutionary. It was going to launch on PlayStation by default, which is also revolutionary. The new PlayStation. It was a fully 3D game, kind of like Help Wanted, but like it had like ray tracing and shit, right? It was going to be like a fully fledged game. The gameplay trailers look fucking sick. And even though Help Wanted's lore was kind of weird, we were willing to like, okay, but I can see how you can just like cool with that, so we'll see what happens. Then we got Security Breach, and it was weird. It's an open world wannabe game. I say wannabe because a lot of the open world aspects really don't function, and a lot of it is supposed to be linear, but it's like a linear experience that they wanted to make open world. I could go into all the nitty-gritty details, but basically, the game isn't scary. The game is mostly a walking sim. The game is very humor-centric, very like polished for children audiences, and in general, it just feels like a weird departure, right? Especially since we just came from FNAF Help Wanted 1, which was a very good experience, was a very scary experience. I mean, it might be because it's in VR, but I still think, in general, it had atmosphere, it had a lot to it, right? And now we're going to Security Breach. We're disregarding the bugs entirely. We're not even going to talk about that. That's a whole category of worms. That's whatever, okay? The game just did not FNAF well. It didn't have FNAF gameplay even remotely. Like, it had this one section where you were locked in a security office and needed to block them off with these cameras. It's like, whatever. Made a cute reference to the original games. I get it. It's fine. But, like, in general, it just didn't FNAF. And that didn't bode well with me, because it just felt like they were abandoning the FNAF point-and-click gameplay entirely. And that I had a problem with that. Anyway, Security Breach was not received well. Not even because of gameplay, just because in general it just wasn't. It wasn't scary. The story was all over the place, by the way, because there was like 7 endings and all of them were contradictory or annoying to get, and nobody wanted to get them. And even if you did get them, it was just like a comic, like you literally read a comic to you. That was the ending. It wasn't even implemented well. They were like storyboard stuff that you'd give to like a storyboard artist in the preliminary stages of like development, right? That's how rushed it looked. And then there was one cutscene, one fully fledged cutscene, and that was it. So, in general, the game was kind of a dumpster fire. So they realized that, and so they made FNAF Ruin, which fixed a few of the problems. I mean, it had atmosphere. It was polished. It was too linear, right? It was too linear. It was like Sister Location in that regard, but the problem with it is it didn't really have a whole lot of gameplay that felt FNAF-y. You had this weird mascot too that was all gameplay gimmick with. You had this mask that could phase through things because they weren't actually there or whatever. I don't want to get into it. It just is whatever, right? A lot of scripted events. It's trying to be Sister Location, is what I'm trying to say. They're trying to do Sister Location, but they're not putting in any actually interesting gameplay sections. There's a lot of running from things, hiding from things, running from things, hiding from things. There's no like actual like resource management gameplay a lot of the time. It really just feels like there's no FNAF DNA to be seen, other than the fact that they are FNAF characters. But like, that's all to me, you know. It just feels a little weird. And then after that, we went from that to FNAF Help Wanted 2, which I believe was during the anniversary year of FNAF. And I think the FNAF movie came out around this time as well. It might have been before the anniversary, whatever. FNAF Help Wanted 2 was announced and released, and it was just Help Wanted 1, but I'm not gonna go into it too much. It was just Help Wanted 1, but instead of atmospheric horror and like an interesting story, it was just like mini game gameplay. Like it was like carnival ride stuff, right? There was some Sister Location jerry rigged in. It existed. And then I want to make a brief mention of the FNAF movie, and then the books, right? Because I have a complaint that kind of links between both of them. I mean, the FNAF movie is just kind of like the Mario movie, whereas it's like a bunch of references strewn together. And mind you, they took like years for the script to be approved. So I'm confused why it turned into the clusterfuck that it was. And I have a feeling that Scott Cawthon declined several good, interesting scripts, which is a shame. But, you know, whatever. The movie had interesting animatronics. They look cool on the screen. It did this thing with the eyes and made them red. Everything about the movie was like cartoonish and like for kids, right? Big problem I had with it. But not even that. I was genuinely gonna think the movie was fine, right? I wasn't gonna have that much of a problem with it. But then I saw the ending, and the ending of it really sold me as this movie cannot exist. I hate this thing so much. Because they just shoehorned William Afton into it, and that could have been fine. That could have been all as well, even though they did spoil the surprise in the trailers for some reason, even though that would have been a fantastic theater moment if they didn't spoil that. But whatever, they spoiled it. I had a few problems with it, right? But the number one, do you know how springlocks work? Because I have a weird fetish about talking about them, so I'm going to talk about them now. Basically, the idea is you have like, okay, so how the mechanical springlocks work in real life, I don't fully understand. I'm not going to get into that. We're suspending our disbelief, right? Because it has been deconstructed that springlock suits would be infinitely more expensive than just getting two separate mascot costumes, one for the animatronic and one for people. Doesn't make sense why I did it, but it's cool, so we do it anyways, right? So shut up. Ignoring that. Basically, you take an animatronic, you load it with springlocks that you can like crank to take the endoskeleton, which is the metal robot inside, and push the parts off to the side of the suit so a person can get inside. Now, the problem with that is they're very tense, right? And if like one wrong movement can cause the springlocks to snap, not snap, they're released, right? And then drive the metal parts back into the body, which is not good because you become spaghetti, and now you're a robot. You are, isn't that so cool? You're a cyborg now. No, you're just dead. It's like a saw trap. It's horrifying. The movie seems to think that there are little claw things in the chest cavity for some reason. I'm not entirely sure what the movie was going on about. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's not even remotely similar to what a springlock is, both in real life and in the movie. So, not the movie, the game. So I don't know what that was about. But that's how the springlocks are portrayed. And another problem I had is William Afton was moving around in the final scene. I mean, he didn't need to be there. But even though he was, just to die in a few seconds. But that aside, he was moving. And you might think that's stupid. Why would we complain about that? No, like, when you're getting spring-locked, that doesn't happen. Like, you have your bones shattered by the impact of, like, these metal rods that are replacing your bones, effectively. You do not get to just move. That does not happen. So, the fact that it was moving all free willy-nilly was a little silly. I mean, you could argue that some parts of the spring-locks weren't, like, didn't spring-lock yet. You could argue that, for sure. But it wasn't even acting like any part. It was a chest cavity too, so like I could go on about this. It's just stupid. I hate it. And then he goes out of his way, puts the helmet on, and says, "I always come back," and then he fucking dies. And like it feels like unnecessary fan service. It does not need to be there. That's my problem with the FNAF movie, right? Particularly the ending. Overall, the writing is dodgy at best. Okay, I wasn't gonna complain about it too hard. I watched it for $8 on Peacock. Okay, I didn't care. Just overall not a great movie. But then we have FNAF books. They came out before. I'm saying after because that's why I'm talking about them. Leave me alone. The books, right? The first two were good. I think the first two were pretty good. I think the first one was the best. The second one is a little dodgy in how it was written, but, you know, that's just how these things are, apparently, so whatever, it's fine. And then FNAF Fourth Closet, I think the book's called. Don't know what happened there. They decided that the main character was okay. The main character being a robot is super cool, and all that. But like the way they went about it is weird because they really wanted to tie in with Sister Location, so they made the robot that they were like look like Circus Baby from FNAF Sister Location. But then they gave him like the audio disc so that they could warp their ability to look human, rather than just having a human appearance and then using the audio disc to make that human appearance look more human. Don't know what that was about. That was weird. But then we also had what I call Wheelchair William Afton, where he was like immortalized and attached to this whole thing. It was super wacky sci-fi. Super wacky. Came out of fucking left field. Like we went from Like, don't get me wrong, Twisted Ones was already weird, right? Because it went into heavy sci-fi territory, but it was whatever, okay? It was whatever. It was cool. It was a great way to end it. I thought the cliffhanger ending of Charlie getting springlocked effectively. It wasn't a springlock. I don't know what that's about. Books do not understand how springlocks work. Pisses me the fuck off, but whatever. And even the comics, like, portray them kind of like the claw things. Kind of like how you saw in the movie. So I have a reason to believe that Scott himself doesn't really know how his own creation works, but that's just my belief. It might not be true. Anyways, Fourth Claw is a weird book, okay? And I didn't read any of the side stories because those are the side stories that they just make on a whim. I really don't think they're important. They might be more cool than the actual books in games at this point, but I really don't care, okay? They're cool, they're their own thing. And that's kind of why I don't really care about FNAF Into the Pit, because it's based off of those side books. That being said, I would like to mention that this it still exemplifies the idea that FNAF is becoming more child-friendly and polished and less focused on gameplay or scares, because, again, this game had almost no gameplay other than just hiding from things, right? There was almost nothing to it. And it's really sad to see the franchise go from this interesting point-and-click type gameplay to just hide. And that's the entire game. So that's how that ended up. I'm not going to go over that too much, because now I want to go into the Dead by Daylight crossover, which is the final thing I have on my list here. I think this is where it really became clear to me that Scott Cawthon just doesn't really want FNAF to be the way that it was kind of leaning back then. You know, he wants to switch the design radically to a more child-friendly, sci-fi-esque thing. It's clear to me because I look at William Atkinson's design. There's a few problems I have with it, but the main thing is, like, the design of his kit in the game. Not gonna go too far into it because that'll require me going like Dead by Daylight and all that shit. But basically, he's the most generic killer I've ever seen. He's not fun to play. He's super generic. He has a lot of shit jerry-rigged into his kit that doesn't really make any sense. And it's just weird, right? His model is super weird too, but I think that's not Scott's fault. I don't think that's his fault at all. But my problem I have is the voice actor, right? William Atkinson has a voice in Ultimate Custom Night. It's the same voice that I use in Dead by Daylight. And you might think that's a good thing. I take issue with it because Springtrap in Ultimate Custom Night only talked when he killed you. So it was like short one-liners, right? And I think it fit him pretty okay. The lines that were in there, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it would have been cooler if he did something cool with the suit, like talking for him, or like some kind of like garbled voice because his vocal cords are destroyed. But we've established that animatronics can speak like ethereally by possessing the suit, so I mean, it's fine. It's whatever. It's okay. Lame, but whatever. But then I see him talking in Dead by Daylight, and hearing all the lines and the goofy shit he says is just like, it was super weird. Big turn off for me, just hearing what Scott envisioned him to sound and act like. I just kind of, yeah, it was really weird. But then Springtrap's kill animation is the goofiest, most cartoonish shit I've ever seen. Even the facial expressions are like stretched out and cartoonized, and it's just, Scott Cawthon worked very closely with Behavior, right? And Behavior really cares about the properties that they show off on their game, right? It bothers me deeply to see it in this state, because I now know that it wasn't Behavior's fault that it ended this way. It's because Scott Cawthon really wanted this cartoony Mori to be in the game. He's gone on record to say how involved he was, right? And even Behavior was like, he's poking and prodding a lot. He wants this to be exactly how he envisions. So it's like, this is what Scott wants. So this is not because some other studio has butchered FNAF, or some other studio just didn't get the memo. This is because Scott Cawthon, from what we can see with the movies and the books, and with how he's taking Springtrap and Dead by Daylight, it's clear that the direction he wants to go in. And I take problem with that. So that's why I just don't really consider myself a proper FNAF fan anymore, because as I'm looking at the games and everything, I'm just realizing things are kind of hitting the fucking, whatever, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's literally fine. It's literally fine. It's not. I'm really upset about this. Unhealthily upset about this, really. So now I want to end off by moving away from the FNAF section and going into the FNAF fan game section. For those who don't know, there was a FNAF fan game initiative where Scott Cawthon gave these developers, I think, to give them like the funds and resources to like make their games like merchandise and stuff. But that wasn't really the main selling point. The main selling point was they were going to make a new game. That wasn't required. but like they could, and then have all the funds and resources they needed to make that new game. And I'm pretty sure everyone did except for this one person who was going to make FNAF Plus, because he was like harassed by the FNAF community. And boy, oh howdy, I have some words for the FNAF community. But anyways, that aside, a lot of those games that came out, I genuinely think they were better in quality than all the recent FNAF games, right? I mean, even One Night at Flumpty's understood the source material better. And it just intensely bothers me seeing how the community has just come to accept, like, pig slop, really, over, like, well, it could be. The FNAF could be great, but it's dumb shit like fucking Security Breach and Ruin and Help Wanted 2 and fucking Into the Pit and The Fourth Closet and the FNAF movie. And don't get me started on the FNAF movie, too, because I don't care. It's fine. Two fan games in particular I want to highlight, right? These are not from the Fanverse Initiative, but I just want to mention the Fanverse Initiative, the show that Scott Cawthon supports his community deeply, okay? I want to make that clear. But recently released Five Nights at Fredbear's 3, which is a game that's on one side of the spectrum where they prioritize gameplay above all else. The game is not even remotely scary. I mean, it is, if you know, you know, but for the most part, it's not, okay? It basically takes the best parts of Ultimate Custom Night, FNAF 6, and yeah, basically those two. It combines them to make an absolutely stellar experience. I think it's fantastic. It is fantastic. You should play it. It's free. And then we have the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 remake from that was particularly the one that was I don't remember who made it, but it was released on April Fools as like a joke to copy ransomware, right? And that was one of the scariest FNAF games ever released, which is funny to me because it was released as a joke, and the guy was like, "Bro, I made this like I shot this out of my ass." Like, incredibly talented. But, like, it's a super well-made FNAF game that actually really, like, capitalizes on that primitive fear of that the original FNAF game tried to capitalize. And it did a very good job at it. I'm just saying, like, this one is like, restructured for a more modern audience who's already played FNAF 1, and it still scares them. So, I mean, it's clear that you can have a scary FNAF game. It's just people don't do that. Because sometimes it's better just have a fun FNAF game. And I think you can have both. I think you absolutely can have both. But, like, I think both sides are valid as long as you keep that FNAF gameplay. Because that's what makes FNAF FNAF, you know? And it really bothers me to see all these FNAF games that just don't have any FNAF gameplay. Like, it's why I feel like Security Breach feels like more like a fan game than it does like an actual FNAF game. Because it doesn't even have any FNAF gameplay in it. It's just a running simulator. That's basically all I have to say about it, right? That's my 2 cents on the matter, is FNAF has fundamentally changed over the years into something entirely unrecognizable. And I just needed to, like, document the journey. Because people look at me crazy when I say that FNAF has, like, changed so drastically that it's barely recognizable. Like, no, bro, like, you closed doors in this one FNAF game. It's still FNAF. I'm like, I don't think you understand how drastically this game, the franchise has kind of warped over the years. Because I really do think that the franchise is just misunderstood by its creators right now. And that was a really weird thing to say, but, like, you can have gold, right? You can strike gold, and then not understand what specifically about that was golden. Look at the Star Wars movies, right? The original Star Wars movies, people love those, even though they were low budget. And when they were given a bigger budget, they added more, like, action stuff and CGI, and some people didn't like those as much because they felt like it wasn't really what made Star Wars special. I'm not going to go into that because I'm not really part of the argument, but I just wanted to pull that out. Like, that's kind of what I'm saying here. All that aside, thank you very much for watching. If you have any opinions to share on the matter, definitely do so below. And if you really like this type of video, I would love to make more of these. Something I've been wanting to do for a while, because I have a lot of these interesting opinions-native videos that I want to make on, like, the Amazing Digital Circus and Call of Duty Zombies as a whole. I mean, I have a whole lot, a whole bunch, a whole bag. So if you have any interesting ideas for me to cover, and if you want me to cover more, absolutely let me know. But for now, that is all, and thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye. Thank you if you're still watching. This is an experimental video. I don't know if I'm going to do more of these or not, but if people like it, I will definitely do it. This was a lot more work than I thought it was. I was going to put gameplay in the background and talk, basically, but then I ended up putting up some, like, images and pop-ups, and I even spent, like, 2 hours searching for animations to put in between, and I made more work for myself than I needed to. So, if you liked it, I'm really good. Awesome. Tell me you did, so I can make more. And if you want to see more of this stuff, then click one of the videos that you see there, because that actually really helps, because it tells the algorithm that I'm worth paying attention to. So, that'd be pretty cool. And thank you. Bye-bye.